Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 18th release engineering subproject meeting for SIG release. This is the first one of 2022. Super exciting. I hope everybody had a great new year. I'm going to drop the notes into the chat so you can follow along. And please write yourself as an attendee. And the agenda is pretty much up to date. We've got a whole bunch of things in open discussion, so we'll go through those things. But first, this meeting is covered by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, so please be mindful of what you say and how you interact with folks on this call. This call will also be available on YouTube, so if you don't want to appear on camera, now's your opportunity to opt out of that. And with that, let's kick it off. We like to start off these meetings and the SIG release meetings by giving folks a chance to introduce themselves. If this is the first time you've attended one of these meetings, feel free to introduce yourself. Looks like a bunch of familiar folks, but we'll give everybody the chance to say hello if they'd like to say hello. All right. So let's move on to the release manager's update, and we'll take care of that one, and then we'll jump down to the open discussions and then bounce back to look at the project board if we have any time remaining. So Adolfo or Navarun, do you want to give the release manager's update?
I can speak from like 1.2.4 perspective, patch releases and the Go updates. I can delegate the rest to Adolfo if there are any more. So the Go updates are right now in progress. We are updating to Go 1.17.6 and Go 1.16.13 on those branches where we use those respective minor releases of Go. Almost all the PRs are up. Actually, all PRs are up, and some of them are in draft because they're dependent on other changes being pulled into the infrastructure. So far, we probably need help in like reviewing and approving those PRs. Other than that, we are good to go. On patch releases, I've created the boilerplate issues for all the 4 patch releases that we are doing tomorrow: 1.20, 1.2021, 2.2, and 2.3. Hopefully all of them would get done tomorrow itself. I'm going to create threads on release management channel, or I forgot which one, but I'll create threads on the Slack channel for coordinating like synchronous stuff, and also ask Google build admins when they would be available. I think Jim volunteered for doing one of the patch releases, but I'm not sure if like he's back from quarantine, so that's there. On the 1.2.4 branch management updates, I've pinged folks who want to be like shadows for the branch manager, and that's where we are right now. The first pre-release, if I remember correctly, is like February 1st week, so the updates will pour in during that time. That's all what I remember. Adolfo, did I miss anything, or do you want to add more things?
I'll add some stuff.
So
yeah, so with regards to the threads for the patch releases, start them in the release management channel. There are some open cherry picks right now that are worth a look. Some of them are marked as priority critical urgent, so I would check in and make sure that those are actually one, they were submitted on time and approved on time, and two, just kind of get an idea of the criticality of them and whether or not they should be included in the in tomorrow's release. For the Go 117 updates, 117, 116 updates, I saw this PRs flying around. My only suggestion would be to flip them to take them out of draft and add a hold to them instead. That way, for repos that we don't directly control, like we don't have the power to flip your PR to ready for review. So if there's a time zone thing and we get an approval in, we get other PRs that merge, and then we get an approval in ahead of you, or beyond your time zone, then we don't have to wait for you to flip the PR back to ready. So just do holds instead, and then we can take the holds off when they're ready. But everything else looks pretty good to go in terms of that.
Thanks. That's a great suggestion, actually. I'll flip those back to normal PRs and hold them. I had one question. Are we targeting the Go updates also for tomorrow? So we need to get them done probably soon.
Ideally we can get them in, but the thing about that is like it's a Go minor release, and it's a so like just for the people on the call. So Go's major minors are actually so the majors are the ones that come out, and they're x.y releases, and their minors are x.y.z. Just a little different from normal Semver. Just wanted to note that. So ideally, like we get the minor in, but the minors are also minor. They're not patching any security fixes or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned if they don't get in. Ideally, we do get them in, and I think we have. I think we can squeak under the window and do it. So.
Would help if I unmuted myself. Thanks for the extra context there, Stephen. Adolfo, you were going to unmute. Was there anything you wanted to add, or are we good on that one?
Yeah, nothing to add from my side.
All right, cool. Any questions from folks? Stephen, you want to?
Yeah, I'll slip some things in. So there are also some, there are PRs and some discussion happening on the promo tools repo around how to do image promotion, if there are things that can be a little bit more done more conveniently in tools. So I wanted to touch on that just really quickly. First, the PR is open from Cecile to allow the Kpromo PR to support, and I'm linking the PR now, to allow Kpromo PR to support filtering by images. So my initial suggestion here was to deprecate CIPMM as a part of that, but we're going to kind of constrict it to just these changes. So basically what's happening here is if you were to, the Kpromo PR was initially written as Krell promote images, and it was used to automatically generate the PR that was required for us to do image promotion for the API server controller manager and all of the various images that go along with doing the Kubernetes release itself, like the core Kubernetes release, right? Now that we've kind of converted that tool into something that is a bit more usable for the wider community, so Kpromo PR can be used by anyone who wants to do image promotion PRs, but it is a little rigid in the things that it's affecting. So if you provide a tag to it, it will scrape your staging repo and try to promote anything that matches that tag, right? This PR, so the initial discussion was around restricting that or allowing a flag like exclude images or something to exclude images that you didn't want to promote. I suggested going the other way, which is to allow a tag that to add a tag images or some such that allows you to explicitly name the images that you want to promote. The reason that I and maybe we prefer that route is that at any one time, you have no guarantee of the images that are going to be in your staging repository, right? So excluding an image means that you need to explicitly name each of the images that you want to exclude, right? So if someone's doing testing in your staging repository and they've got an image that has a similar name, or it has a different name but the same tag, then you're going to end up pulling that in if you don't know about it, right? So it's better to explicitly name the images, which is why we're going this route. So I'm going to review this PR a little later today, but it's looking like it's good to go once we get feature parity with Kpromo and CIPMM, which stands for Container Image Promoter Merge Manifest, right? So that was like the predecessor to Kpromo PR. Once they have feature parity, I'm going to deprecate CIPMM altogether. So that There's another discussion in promo tools that is related to the way we read the image manifests or the promotion manifests for kpromo, and discussions like, would it be better, or could it be more, or would it be more convenient and human readable if the promotion manifests were sorted by tag instead of digest, right? So I understand where people are coming from in that request. I'm a little -1 to it because of just the mapping of things, using very technical terms here. But tags. So the same digest can have multiple tags, whereas the same tag is going, whereas a tag will be designated to a digest, right? So there is a one-to-many mapping with the digests and the tags, which is why the promotion manifest was initially written that way. Could we change it in the future? Yes, potentially, but that does mean that we'd have to consider the implications for promotion itself, right? So human readable is nice, but if it breaks our computer, then it's bad, right? So that's something to consider. There's something else to consider, is that humans should not really be reading the manifests, right? Ideally, when you're promoting images, you're using CIPMM or you're using kpromo PR to automatically generate those PRs, right? The review should be based on, can we validate against that command, and does a human who has access to that staging repository, have they actually reviewed the changes that are in some PR that's backing that promotion, right? So the human readable aspect, I'm a little less concerned about. It suggests that people may not be using the automation as much as we want them to. So I think, I think the energy should go into making people aware of the tools that we have, as opposed to potentially breaking systems.
All right. Thanks for that extra info on kpromo and the work going on there. Any questions for Stephen at that? Did it spark any topics anybody wanted to follow up with? All right. If not, any other release manager related info or topics we want to get into before we move on to the open discussion items? All right. Thanks, Nabarun and Stephen. That was super good amount of updates. It was pretty informative. Okay, first up in our open discussion items, as I scroll through here, it looks like we've got a few things that are related to image signing and artifact distribution. We've got one from Tim Pepper, who's not on the call, but is in a overlapping OpenSSF call related to security keys. So folks can take a look at that. We can get to that one afterwards. And I see Hippie is here. Let's jump to his topic first. Oh, wait, he was here. Is he still here? Yes, still here. Let's take care of his video off. Yeah, he's got his video off. Let's take care of his first, since it's an ungodly time for him right now. Thanks for joining us, Hippie. Do you want to launch into this one?
Absolutely.
All right.
I just wanted to thank everybody for, at the end of last year, attending a couple of these meetings and then also showing up to the Kate's Infra call. I just wanted to remind a call to action. Thank you for merging. I saw that merged this morning. Most excellent. We should probably have a working call at a reasonable time when I can give you my full energies to move this along, as we have a hole in the boat of about 150K a month that I'd love to help plug. That's really the main call to action and encouragement. And would love to know if someone wants to coordinate with me on a reasonable time and let me know who wants to come. That would be great. It's trying to make sure that we get this across the line as soon as possible.
I'd like to be in there. So when we say this, are we talking about the KEP specifically?
Yep, the KEP is kind of our coordination point to get that. If we complete this KEP and get through the either promote to multiple providers or caching or something, where the load is carried by multiple providers. It's the same KEP that Arnaud is linking to, possibly.
Yeah, it should be in the notes already. Poll 3079.
Yeah, that's the one.
K enhancements.
Yep, this is a primary high thing for me this year. And so I'm looking forward to coordinating with Stephen and anyone else that wants to do that.
Cool. I know that I pushed some updates to that branch before. I'm not sure how you integrated them. Did you give me access to the update, or did you like jump into my branch? Or I forgot exactly.
I think
what
I just
you did.
merged it back into my existing PR because I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Okay, cool.
My memory is, I'd have to go look again.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I think there are some things left to be fleshed out from the release engineering side. That if you give me access to the branch, I can kind of
absolutely
hack on that together with
you access to the branch now. Well, it's already merged, so we can.
Well, I think there were additional comments about I think from Tim requesting more info on the release engineering side. And I see, Arnaud, you have your hand up.
Yep. So Sasha has a question, and I want to add a question to that, because my understanding is we have a KEP, but what's the outcome of this KEP? Is it a policy or something else?
And that's kind of what I was hinting at with my question before too. Merging the KEP doesn't actually, I won't say it doesn't do anything, but all it does is commit the idea to paper, so to speak. If we go that route, then I think the KEP kind of softly suggests some things, but what's a concrete next action like from the technical side that we would do to fix this?
I think what we're looking for is that the decisions around the technical implementation sides, and that comes from the policy. So there's two parts, and I think one of the policy things is, are we going to push to multiple providers? Are we going to do caching? Are we going to do and in what ways do we want to do that? And I think we've covered some of those pieces in the KEP, and as far as like some options, but we need to get through the point of making some decisions on that. And does definitely fall into multiple people's camps, but primarily SIG release and the release engineering.
All right, cool. So I will do some review of that this week and try to push it along.
Thanks heaps for that. And when we're ready, I know that we had spoken before around the technical side of needing updates to image promoter and some other pieces when we know the approach we want to use. And I'm available to put some resources at that and help us in any way that CNCF and II can.
Awesome. And I did some poking at the image promoter, and I'm cautiously going to say, like, it shouldn't be quote unquote too bad. The poking
Nice.
I was doing was around the support for artifact registry.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like that is possible with a few tweaks and not too many tweaks.
Nice.
So hopefully the same is true for another registry. But I think maybe this is going to be an out of band process to do the syncing, but we'll take it to the KEP to figure it out.
Awesome. I will be around and ready to support in any way that I can, and also the rest of the II team.
Thank you, Hippie.
Thanks for joining us at the
Absolutely
wonderful time for you. Sasha, do we want to fold your question in here? Like, are you looking for a specific answer to that question now, or are you asking high-level questions that need to be worked out in follow-up?
No, in general, I'm kind of fine if we say, okay, this cap just states that we have to do something from a technical perspective, but not what exactly, and we find it out later on. So this would be totally fine.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Any action items we want to write down for this specific topic before we move on?
I still have one question.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so basically we say we push the images to cloud providers. So those cloud providers are supposed to pay for any cost related to the usage of their service, or is it CNCF paying for that?
So I feel that this is going to start to dovetail with the cloud native credits program on the CNCF level, and I think the kind of the dance of who pays for what. I think it'll be clear based on what our bill is, what's going where already. But in terms of like the mechanism for cutting a check, I think that will probably be routed through the CNCF Cloud Native credits program.
That is the intended plan.
Okay, so we just mentioned cloud provider, but if, for example, a university is interested to host those images, how are we including those kind of organization in this policy?
I feel that unless we have actually run into that scenario, I'm not sure the discussions you may have had, but I think it'd be important to target the cloud providers first, since that's where most of the spend is coming from.
Okay.
That seems super reasonable to me too. All right, any other questions? Anything unanswered or anything that folks would like to jot down so that we can revisit it later for this topic? All right. Hearing none, let's move on back to the top of the open discussion items and the container image signing MVP. We have many folks as the responsible or the person adding it to the agenda. Does anybody want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I can give a summary about the
right.
issue I created. Can you please pass over screen sharing to me?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Sorry, I haven't done this in a hot minute.
Yeah, I can enable that everyone can enable screen sharing or something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just make you co-host, and then
Okay.
Then you're
even more power. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just share my screen. Or just a tab. So
got it.
Yeah, so the release artifact signing enhancement has been merged. So from that point in time, we can now start working on the technical details. And we decided to create an MVP by focusing on container images in the first place. So we would like to sign our officially built container images using cosign and the keyless signing feature. How the keyless signing feature works is laid out in this document. It's not that complicated. But all in all, it has, so we have to write the source code for it that it actually works as intended. And I added some details and constraints which came up into my mind, and maybe you have some more right now on top of your head. So the first one was that in the first place, we don't define our own root trust. So we use the default root trust as an MVP. So this will simplify the overall integration. Then we will implement it into our Kubernetes release SDK because it will be used later on by Krell, which is responsible for building the container images as well as pushing them to the desired locations, as well as in kpromo, which can be later on used for artifact promotion, for example, and signing those artifacts, binary artifacts, so to say. Yeah, we all assume that we use cosigning in a Google Cloud build environment where we build the container images. This also simplifies the overall process, and there's already documentation on the cosign side, which would help us to get our work done. After that, which also came into my mind, and Adolfo already clarified, if we can use cosign as a Golang library. I'm not sure if it's really intended to be used as a Golang library, but I'm pretty sure that this is a use case on their side. So if we see any missing parts, which is probably part of the CLI and not part of a nice library interface, then we can probably contribute to cosign directly to get everything into shape as we expected. So I'm kind of optimistic that this is true. And yeah, then I also added some documentation requirements. So how can end users verify the signatures? Which also came into my mind was that we probably have a third-party instance later on, which verifies the signatures as a dedicated build step, not directly within the container image build process, but later on as a separate step to verify the integrity of the build. But for now, every end user should be able to verify those signatures. And yeah, there are a couple of folks who expressed their interest in working on this. And I think Adolfo and myself will also support it and also, yeah, split it up into further issues if there's some more work to be done later on, and also follow up with the next implementation details. But for now, we would like to focus on this one. And my question would be, does anyone have anything on top of that or any questions about this?
I think all of this makes a lot of sense based on what we've discussed in the past. I love the implementation details and constraints here. For cosign, I believe the implementation, kind of to your point, is like on the, I believe it's a package for the CLI, but it looks like it'd be simple enough to kind of, tease some of the right pieces out. Agree that it should be, we should consume via library as opposed to the binary. In the grand scheme of things, the thing that I would love to see happen, and it's kind of, I think, part of the reason that it's in the constraints, is that it should eventually be able to, the image promoter should be able to cut signatures for every image within the Kubernetes community. That way, there's no question about at a baseline. There's there's one signature. If we sign images multiple times, not a big deal. From release managers with love, as well as from the Kubernetes community, right? So I think in an ideal state, we get to provide image signing via a mechanism that already exists for the entire community, being the image promoter. The documentation requirement, yes. I think a lot of what the documentation will cover is probably already covered in cosign documentation, and the documentation may be as simple as linking people to cosign documentation. But this is great. This is all really, really great.
So I have some thoughts about, well, some comments about that. Yeah, since I don't know, probably October or November from last year, I asked the question if you can import cosign as a library, and back then the answer was it's intended to, not ready yet. But I think someone brought up the question on one of the 6 circles about in December, one of the last ones, and it's already running. So I checked with I think it was maybe Matt Moore or Jake Sanders, I think, and they told me that absolutely that should be an importable library. So we're covered on that front. There's also I think it's important to note that the thing that Stephen was talking about having our own trust delegation. I've been discussing with Azrali and Trishank about from Sixer about the establishing the Kubernetes delegations. The nice idea there would be that we could have like a Kubernetes root and then delegate like other keys to the smaller projects. Not smaller, actually for each individual project, and then have them sign their artifacts as a first instance, then submit them, and before actual release or promotion or whatever, we can stamp them with the Kubernetes release signature that we deem to be the official one to go out. So that's a nice feature. We are still exploring because not all of the code is ready for that yet, and they are really advancing it, frankly, at a faster pace, because they are really interested in having us be like the testing organization for the delegation. So we're good on that front. And I was writing a couple of graphics, trying to do some graphics to kind of illustrate the places that we may sign things and how it may work. My idea is to link this and somewhere and have them published to explain how we are signing. I don't know if I can share my screen so that I can show them to you.
I stopped sharing.
You can now.
Okay.
You're also a co-host.
While you're waiting to share the screen, just a note that we exist as, while we cut the Kubernetes core artifacts, we also exist as a smaller project within the ecosystem. So that does give us an opportunity to use ourselves as a test bed for all of the various release images that we use that are not core Kubernetes, right? So kubectl and et cetera, right?
Oh, and by the way, another thing that I asked them is that if we can, for example, have a top Kubernetes organization root, and then from there also sign artifacts that get released from the Kubernetes 6 repositories, and they told me that we can do that, absolutely. So that opens up the possibility to also secure and sign things from like the SBOM tool, for example. So prepare to be dazzled with graphics abilities. So in a simplified way, this is the way we kind of do things now. So we're in Krell. We create the Kubernetes images, then we push them to a staging repository. We merge a promotion PR, and then the image promoter will copy those images to the production registry, right? So this is the way it works currently. The idea of having the images signed, this is a possible way we could do that. So we would create the images, push them to the registry and sign them. And then after the image promoter promotion PR gets merged, we can verify the signatures and of the staged images, and then copy those and then sign them again using the top level Kubernetes release key or the key we determined to do that. So this is when we talk about having the MVP dealing with container images, I think this would be the case. I don't know if this is what you intended, Sasha, at this point.
This is what I had in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, but so images are not the only things that we sign. There's another one that I wanted to show you that I'm working on, and it's this one. So how it works inside of Krell. So currently, there are many parts of the release process. This is not complete yet, and there's lots of parts missing, but I want to create like a simplified view just from the designer's point of view. So right now we create images. So the first blob is wrong. So we create the images and we should sign those images. Then we compile the binaries. We should sign those binaries, and then the main message here is when we build all of the artifacts during staging, most of them should have signatures attached to them. And then at the end of staging, we create an in-toto attestation that describes the build process and also the artifacts that we are releasing. That attestation should be signed too. And because so the attestation is what allows you to have like a decoupled, secure decoupled building process. So you run a stage, one of the steps in the build process, and you should attest to what you've just done and sign it. So the next step can actually verify what you said. So we're taking that attestation and verifying the artifacts it produced. But we cannot, there's no way to trust that attestation. I mean, we trust it because we trust the access controls of the bucket that it lives in, but that's it. There's no way of actually verifying that someone didn't replace that attestation with something else. So we should sign that attestation, and then it's a little bit back to the same thing. So we publish those artifacts, then we write an SBOM, and we should also sign that SBOM. And if we are going to attach, for example, SBOMs to the actual images at some point, we should also sign those. And then at the end of the release, we also sign and produce an attestation of the provenance of the artifacts that we actually released to the public, and with that one should also be signed. So that's why I agree with Sasha that we should abstract the library away in Kubernetes, in the release SDK repository, so that we can reuse it, because there's lots of places that we should be using it to sign images and blobs and all sorts of things.
So looking at this, I can see that, at least from the perspective of, I would imagine that the signatures, the various intermediary artifacts that we have, not the official artifacts or the staging artifacts per se, but the attestations, right? And that seems like, because right now, knowing what we know about our release process and where things live, the staging process happens within Google territory, as well as the production promotion, right? And it's kind of like, if you have reasonable access to staging, you can get things to production, is where we're at today. So I think there is yet another intermediary step of bringing these to community infrastructure. Definitely the attestations, the SBOMs, the provenance metadata, and using, I think, and maybe this is further afield, but the file promotion process, as well as, so essentially somewhere in the boundary of these two squares, you're creating a file promotion PR that's grabbing this from, we're PRing it up to some production bucket or some pre-production bucket, that then is carrying it off to production, right? So that hints at work around the file promotion process, work around the integrating signing into the file promotion stuff as well, right?
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Yeah, I didn't get to do the slides for that one, but that.
So I would also say that, like, I think that we should, we're attacking like the ideal scenario. And there are lots of intermediary steps as you're laying out. I think it would be worthwhile to see what a base case looks like. Can we do this for the SBOM tool? Can we do this for K-Promo? Can we do this for something else that's in our wheelhouse already? That way we can build confidence, and we can also start to, I'm trying to think of, like, looking at this, what's the best way to assign people to this work, right? So you take something like the cosign library stuff, right? That's something that release manager, associate release manager could work on, right? Where I'd like to see you, Adolfo, and Sasha probably focusing on is what's the long-term version of it, right? So, like, if there's something missing that's around image promotion, something missing around file promotion. How are we handling that? Right. That way we've kind of got these like parallel streams of people shoring up the cosign library and prepping it for smaller utilities. And then the top level of like, what does core Kubernetes artifact, like what does the entire flow look like for core Kubernetes artifacts? I think there's a lot of ways to chop it, but I think that we should try to prove some of this out, not necessarily in the core Kubernetes stuff just yet. That way, in addition, as a means of like figuring some of that stuff out, we also can test out using these various roots of trust, right? And saying like, okay, this flow did not work for us at all, right? And we haven't shipped it to core Kubernetes just yet. So we can rework it and then try again before, because like the scary part, the scary part of all of this is like, once you turn it on, right, there will be expectations from every consumer, right? So making sure that we get it right is really, really, really important.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe we could even establish like another parallel release bucket, for example, when we start doing artifacts, to first do the stand release things there, and then simply switch it to the actual real release one or something like that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think we because I think we had discussed this in the past, but like one of the things of like moving away from Google infrastructure altogether, right, is just starting to write somewhere else, right? So part of that is getting the file promotion stuff down too, because I think if we're writing the release to multiple buckets, then we've got wiggle room. We've got a little something to play with that's elsewhere. And we're also starting to backfill releases ahead of saying like, hey, everyone, this is the new bucket, right? That way, when it comes time that we're actually doing a sync between, old prod and new prod, it's a little less intensive. Arno, you had a question. Are we planning to extend the artifact signature to sub-projects? And yeah, so the idea behind having this work in Kpromo is that it would work for everyone, right? So at a baseline, you'd get at least one signature, right? And as we start to build out that route to Adolfo and Sasha's point, right, we have that top level. This is the Kubernetes project route, and fan off intermediaries for various sub projects or SIGs or however we want to kind of carve the thing up. But the idea is that like if you are following our image promotion process or file promotion processes, file promotion, no one. I don't think I wouldn't suggest too many people try to use that today, but if you're following the natural accepted route from SIG release and release engineering, then you should get an artifact that's signed. And we should explore what the kind of step outside of our group and explore what that means, right? For certain groups, they're shipping things to, they may be cutting depths and RPMs, they may be cutting container images, they may be shipping things to GitHub, they may be not shipping things to GitHub, maybe only storing it in a bucket, they may be doing things on Homebrew, right? There are a bunch of different, things to look at, and deciding where, I don't think there will be a one true source for anything, because we want to provide the utilities without being overly prescriptive to the entire project. But yeah, I think that's definitely worth more discussion. And Joseph, thank you for taking copious notes so far. See you later.
I'll pick it up. So just a matter of time. Is this meeting 60 minutes? The agenda says 60 minutes, but I think my calendar invite said 45. Do we want to continue, or do folks have a hard stop?
We tightened it up to about 45, 50.
Okay, I'll update the agenda docs too, just to make sure that reflects it. So we had two other items that were on the agenda. One was from Arno about Deb and RPMs inside community infrastructure, and then one from Tim regarding the keys that the OpenSSF would like to distribute. I think, just given the time, it would be probably good to just move those into async discussions and SIG release. Does anybody have any objection to that? Or Arno, do you want to like hit your thing in 30 seconds? Or
I think I can speed round some of it too.
Okay.
Or no, go.
Speed round, go.
Oh, it's me?
Yeah. For devs RPMs.
Basically, I saw that issue about move dev and RPMs to Kate Infra. So I kind of want to start looking at these milestones and also trigger some conversation with Google about system packages signature. So I don't know if people are interested to work on this or.
So I will say that, so we've got one issue that was opened in 2017 by Joe Beta, and the other one was opened by DIMS in 2019. I do not think that the checklists that are in those issues represent current state. What I can say is that given we have, so one, solving distribution in general will be a big part of this, solving file promotion. If we figure out the distribution stuff when we're happy with it, one of the big things that we one of the big reasons that we're not quick to move on this is it's like I think for lack of better words, it's sort of a managed service, right? Us having devs and RPMs is essentially a managed service by Google, right? We have the capabilities with Artifact Registry to stand up dev and RPM repos, right? That said, the second we decide to do something like that, that increases our spend, right? So that's another consideration that we have. But it's possible. It's possible today because Artifact Registry does have that capability. Artifact Registry is turned on for I think most of the relevant release engineering staging projects. So it's something that we can start working on. And if you want to be the person who takes point on that, Arno, I'm happy to have you do that. I do have to there's a lot of cleanup to be done on some of this on some of these active issues. One of the things is it talks about signing, and we're in this large conversation about signing right now, right? There is, I don't know what the current status is kind of like on the dev RPM side, but I believe devs are moving to the point where you do not have to sign with GPG keys, right? If we have to sign with GPG keys, that creates an entirely different discussion. I recently closed the longstanding issue, I don't know, 2017, 2018, around signing packages with GPG keys. Because we're going the cosign route, we should also investigate how much of the active effort in the image signing, artifact signing can be weaved into the deb and RPM package signing, right? So that's one component of it. There's also the would it be better to do like the homebrew style, right, where they're using ORAS, right? So OCI registry as storage to ship their packages, right? Is that a feasible solution for us? Should we just say let's go with the artifact registry and keep it simple? That may be a better route for us, right? So that's worth discussion. But yeah, if you want to take point on this, I'm happy to have you run with it.
Okay, so I think we need a technical conversation about this because my main concern is really signature, not distribution.
Okay, my bigger concern is actually spend.
Well, you don't. Okay, so
yeah,
if you want, spam can be addressed in a different way. We can basically do like what Alpine Linux or Debian is doing. We use a CDN and it's paid by the CDN.
Okay.
In terms of distribution, the only thing you need to do is push those system packages in the GCS bucket. You have an agreement. You have an agreement with a CDN provider. It's done.
Okay. All right, so that should be fine. There's also a design of the repos moving forward, because the way our repos are currently designed, kind of we have one per essentially, and it restricts how you handle upgrades based on what's available in the repo and the various package depends configurations, right, for them. But much longer discussion. I'm happy to hear that it may be simpler than I'm thinking in my head. I will now speed round the OpenSSF one, if that's cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. So for the OpenSSF one, reading from the notes, Tim is not in meeting, overlapping OpenSSF best practices Zoom. So the OpenSSF has a project called, or sub-project called the Great MFA Distribution Project, right? They reached out to us on the KDev mailing list to see if we would be interested in getting involved in that. TLDR for that discussion is that yes, we are interested, and it would be awesome. Great MFA distribution project is OpenSSF offering to deliver YubiKeys or Google Titan keys to key maintainers of the project. I took point on this as a release manager, yada, yada, yada. Going through the issue, we have an active issue that is in K-release. A lot of the the good note is a lot of the release managers already have Titan YubiKey and are kind of doing their signing that way, or doing MFA that way. There are I think I think there's a larger discussion around like when we start to look at building out this root of trust. We've got we kind of started this discussion way back when SigStore was doing their signing ceremony and starting to talk about the additional root for Kubernetes. Does that look like hardware keys and some entirely different infrastructure that that we would need? That is part of the discussion that we had a little earlier. But I will be going through and checking who has what. I think a lot of people have Titan keys, kind of as a result of SigStore as well. And the remaining people are, so to Tim's question, to actually say what Tim is concerned about, OpenSSF is really excited to get these keys out to the Kubernetes project release folks. They were worried that the project might see this as a call to have all approvers, reviewers use hardware security keys and request hundreds from them. We should figure out where the bounds of this split between the PSC release and how to level up security beyond release eventually too, and ourselves budget for acquiring keys, example via CNCF for our key devs. Yes, I agree. That's part of the reason that I wanted SIG release to be taking point on this. I think first and foremost, we need to make sure that all of the release managers who are currently staffed have the keys that they need and are doing things safely. Outside of extending beyond that, I see the SIG Infra as one of the next interested parties, the Security Response Committee, Steering Committee, and then we take it from there. I see that a lot of people there are a few people who have commented on that issue, interested in receiving keys that are not kind of part of those groups. So I think that we should consider handling that separately. I think that this is something that we can potentially talk to the CNCF about funding, and we can go from there. But I do agree that I don't feel that every reviewer or approver is going to need to subscribe to this program. And I also think that we should be very careful as a very, very large project to make sure that we're not draining resources that could be extended to other projects in the ecosystem first. So.
All right, I captured the speed round notes there. Thank you for diving into that. We're out of time now, so we'll end it here. If anybody has any follow-up items or any topics that we didn't get to that you didn't get a chance to put on the agenda, please start a thread in SIG release and we can take it from there. Hope everybody has a fantastic Tuesday or Wednesday if you're in New Zealand, and have a great week.
Hey everyone.
Take it easy, everyone.
Good week, everyone. Bye.